How many times have you promised yourself change only to repeat the same patterns? How many mornings have you woken up with determination only to end the day feeling that familiar sense of disappointment? You see, most people believe their life isn't transforming because they lack discipline or motivation or the right opportunity. But the truth is far simpler and far more uncomfortable. Your life isn't changing because you're trying to change results, not the habits of character that create those results. People try to force change from the outside. They try to chase new goals, make new plans, or push themselves with sheer willpower. And for a moment, it works. On Sunday night, they feel energized, hopeful, ready to reinvent themselves. They write lists, they set intentions, they feel unstoppable. But by Wednesday, reality hits, the enthusiasm fades, the old habits return, and they find themselves right back where they started, exhausted, discouraged, and quietly disappointed in themselves. This is the reactive loop so many people live in. They begin with excitement, fall back into autopilot, then blame themselves for not being strong enough. They promise to do better next week, only to repeat the pattern again. And each cycle erodes a little more confidence, a little more self-trust, until they start believing that transformation just isn't for them. But it's not because they're weak, it's because they're working on the wrong layer of life. You cannot transform your life by attacking symptoms. You transform your life by changing the systems, your habits, your routines, your inner architecture. Trying to rely on willpower alone is like trying to hold your breath and call it swimming. You might last a moment, but it's not sustainable. Real change begins within. It begins with the small, consistent habits of character that quietly shape every choice, every reaction, every outcome. I want you to picture someone you know, or maybe it's you, who begins each week with a burst of motivation. They clean their space, write a new plan, watch inspiring videos, and feel ready for a breakthrough. But then life happens. A stressful moment, an unexpected demand, a small frustration, and suddenly the old self takes the wheel. One reactive moment leads to another, and by midweek, their goals feel distant again. This is not failure. This is the consequence of building your life on momentary emotion rather than lasting habits. And that leads us to the foundational truth of this entire message. Your habits are the invisible architecture of your life. They shape your thinking, your energy, your emotional resilience, your priorities, often without you even realizing it. You rise or fall to the level of your habits, not your hopes. In this video, I'm not going to give you tricks, shortcuts, or quick bursts of motivation. Those may lift you for a moment, but they don't transform you. What I will give you are habits, simple, principle-centered habits that have the power to reshape your life from the inside out. These habits are not about force, they're about alignment. They are not about intensity, they are about consistency. They are not about becoming someone new overnight. They are about becoming someone better every day. If you've been stuck, if you've felt frustrated, if you've wondered why your life seems resistant to change, stay with me. Because once you understand how habits of character truly work, you won't have to fight for change anymore. You'll be building it quietly, intentionally, and permanently. This is where your transformation begins. Habit 1, the daily alignment ritual. One of the greatest mistakes people make is beginning their day without first presenting themselves to their own life. They get out of bed and immediately move into tasks, responsibilities, and demands. They step into motion before stepping into themselves. And when you start the day this way, you lose the most important leadership responsibility you have, to decide who you will be before you decide what you will do. You cannot expect clarity from a mind you haven't aligned. You cannot expect patience from a heart you haven't centered. You cannot expect effectiveness from a life you haven't grounded in purpose. Your day will always reflect the person you bring into it. And if you bring a scattered self, you will live a scattered day. If you bring a reactive self, you will live a reactive day. But if you bring a principled self, a centered self, a deliberate self, everything changes. This is why I teach what I call the daily alignment ritual. It is a simple practice, no more than 2 minutes, yet it can shape the entire direction of your day. It is the core of living from the inside out, choosing to align your inner light before dealing with the outer world. You don't begin with tasks or demands. You begin with identity, with values, with awareness. The ritual begins with something profoundly simple. Breathe. Sit or stand in stillness for a few seconds. Let your mind slow down. Let your body arrive. This moment is not about meditation. It is about reclaiming yourself before the world starts pulling at you. For most people, morning begins in a rush, as if urgency defines who they are. But a single breath can create the space in which choice becomes possible. The second step is to recognize your state. Ask yourself, what am I bringing into this day? Are you tired, anxious, hopeful, distracted, calm? It doesn't matter what the answer is. What matters is that you see yourself clearly before you act. Awareness is the foundation of responsibility. When you know your internal starting point, you can choose your response instead of being carried by emotion. The third step is to choose one guiding value for the day. Not a long list, just one. A value that represents the person you want to be as you move through the next 24 hours. Perhaps patience, clarity, compassion, courage, service, discipline, or focus. Hold that value in your mind for a moment. Let it become your anchor. This single choice acts as a compass for your thoughts and actions. When challenges arise, and they will, that value will remind you of the path you intend to walk. The fourth step is to visualize your day from that value. Picture yourself moving through the morning, the afternoon, the evening. Imagine yourself speaking, deciding, responding from the value you selected. Not perfectly, just intentionally. Visualization isn't fantasy, it is preparation. When your mind sees the way before your feet walk it, your behavior follows more naturally. You begin living by design rather than by default. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine a father waking up before his children. He's tired, he's thinking about work, he's already anticipating stress, but before rushing into the day, he pauses for 2 minutes. He breathes. He recognizes that he feels impatient. He chooses his guiding value, patience, and he visualizes the morning helping his kids get ready for school, listening to their questions, responding thoughtfully rather than hurriedly. When the moment actually arrives, he is different. His children feel it. He feels it. His home feels it. That one value, chosen early, becomes a blessing to everyone influenced by him. This is the impact of aligning yourself before engaging with the world. You are not just preparing for the day, you are preparing the person who will live that day. You are not just setting intentions, you are becoming intentional. And I want you to hold on to this truth. The person you bring into the day matters more than the tasks you complete. Your tasks will come and go. Your responsibilities will rise and fall. But the quality of the self you bring into every moment, that is what shapes your relationships, your impact, and ultimately your life. Build this first habit with consistency. 2 minutes every morning. 2 minutes to align, to center, to choose. And you will begin to experience a shift that no amount of willpower or external motivation can create. This is the foundation of true transformation, starting the day from the inside out. Habit 2, prioritize the big rocks. One of the greatest illusions of modern life is the belief that being busy is the same as being effective. People fill their days with movement, activity, and constant urgency, believing that the sheer volume of what they do somehow equals progress. But busyness is not progress. Busyness is often a sign of misalignment, of reacting to whatever is loudest instead of choosing what is most important. This is why so many people finish their days exhausted yet unfulfilled. They worked hard on the wrong things. To understand true effectiveness, I want to revisit a metaphor that has helped millions of people reorganize their lives: the big rocks. Imagine a glass jar, which represents the time and energy you have in a day. Now imagine big rocks, your most meaningful priorities. then smaller pebbles, less important tasks, and finally, sand emails, notifications, distractions, all the noise that fills your life. If you pour the sand first, the jar fills quickly. There is no room left for the big rocks. They spill out. They get neglected. And this is exactly what happens to your life when you start your day with the trivial and urgent. The meaningful gets pushed aside by the meaningless. Now imagine placing the big rocks in first. They fit easily. Then you add the pebbles. They settle around the big rocks. Finally, the sand fills the small spaces that remain. This time, everything fits. Nothing is lost. The jar is full, properly full. The lesson is simple. If you don't put the big rocks in first, you'll never get them in at all. Let me translate this into a modern example. Picture someone who wakes up, checks their phone, and immediately gets pulled into messages, notifications, work alerts, and small tasks. Within minutes, they are reacting. Their energy is fragmented. Their attention is scattered. They move from one minor urgency to the next, believing they are being productive because they are doing things. But the truth is, they are letting the sand fill their jar before they've placed a single big rock. By evening, they may have completed dozens of small tasks, but none of the ones that truly matter. Their day was full, but it was not meaningful. To stop living this way, you must build a simple and powerful habit. Each morning, choose 3 big rocks for the day. These are not tasks, they are commitments to what matters most. And they fall into 3 categories. 1 big rock for your character, something that strengthens who you are, responding with patience, keeping a promise, practicing integrity, acting with courage. 1 big rock for your relationships, a meaningful action that nurtures connection, a conversation you've been avoiding, a moment of gratitude, being fully present with someone you care about. 1 big rock for your mission or meaningful work. Not busy work, mission work. The kind of action that advances your purpose, your career, your contribution. The work only you can do. When you choose these 3 priorities intentionally, your day becomes centered instead of chaotic. You no longer drift. You no longer let noise dictate your direction. You decide what matters before the world tries to decide it for you. And remember this distinction. Busy people manage time. Effective people manage priorities. Time management is about squeezing more activity into your day. Priority management is about elevating what matters above what distracts. One leads to exhaustion. The other leads to purpose and progress. To help you internalize this habit, I want to give you a small exercise you can do right now. Before this video ends, or at least before you step into the rest of your day, pause for 1 minute. Ask yourself, who do I want to be today? Whose life do I want to influence today? What is 1 meaningful action that will move my mission forward? Write down 1 answer for each question. These are your big rocks for today. Commit to them, protect them, honor them. Even if your day becomes chaotic, as it often will, return to these 3 priorities. They will keep you anchored in what truly matters. When you build the habit of choosing your big rocks daily, your life begins to shift. You stop living in reaction and start living by design. You stop confusing motion with progress. You begin moving closer to the life you were meant to create, 1 deliberate priority at a time. Habit 3, act from your circle of influence. One of the most important habits you can develop, one that will transform the way you live, lead, and make decisions, is the habit of acting from your circle of influence, not your circle of concern. Every day, you face 2 sets of forces. The first is everything you cannot control: the economy, other people's choices, the news cycle, the weather, traffic, opinions, delays, frustrations. This is your circle of concern. It is wide, loud, and often overwhelming. The second set of forces is everything you can control: your choices, your attitudes, your responses, your priorities, your character, the commitments you keep. This is your circle of influence. It is smaller, quieter, and far more powerful. And here is the crucial truth. Your life expands or contracts based on which circle you focus on. Let me give you a simple scene that plays out in millions of homes every morning. A professional wakes up, grabs their phone, and immediately scans through the news. Within seconds, they are frustrated politics, global problems, crises they cannot influence. Then they check social media, comparison, criticism, noise. Then emails, complaints, demands, minor irritations. Before they've even had breakfast, their emotional energy is drained by a dozen things, none of which they can directly control. This person believes they're informing themselves, but what they are really doing is surrendering their influence. They are beginning the day in the circle of concern. And when you start there, you enter a reactive state that weakens your confidence, your clarity, and your ability to lead yourself. You feel smaller, more overwhelmed, more powerless, not because the world changed, but because your focus did. To break this pattern, I teach a powerful habit. Make 3 proactive moves each day. These moves pull you back into the circle of influence where your power lives. They don't have to be dramatic. They simply need to be intentional, chosen, and within your control. First, make one proactive decision. A decision rooted in your values, not in pressure. It could be choosing patience in a stressful moment, choosing integrity when it's easier to avoid responsibility, choosing to speak kindly when irritation rises. This decision reminds you that you are not a victim of circumstance, you are the leader of your internal world. Second, take one proactive action. A clear, simple action within your control. Send that message you've delayed. Begin that important task. Clean a small space. Organize something meaningful. Exercise. Serve someone. These actions may seem small, but each one strengthens your influence. You are choosing to create, not react. Third, have one proactive conversation. A conversation you've needed but avoided. It could be expressing appreciation, resolving a misunderstanding, setting a boundary, or asking a question that brings clarity. Most people avoid these conversations because they require courage. But every proactive conversation expands your influence and strengthens your self-respect. These 3 proactive moves shift you from a reactive life to an intentional one. And the emotional impact is profound. When you act from your circle of influence, even in small ways, your self-esteem rises. You feel more competent, more centered, more capable. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to see that your choices matter, that your actions have weight, that your life is not defined by conditions but by character. But the opposite is also true. The more time you spend in your circle of concern complaining, worrying, overthinking, blaming, the lower your confidence falls. You feel powerless because you're focusing on what you cannot change. This is not weakness. It is misdirected energy. When your mind lives where your power doesn't, your sense of influence disappears. I want you to remember this, because it captures the heart of proactive leadership. Your influence grows when you live where your power lives. Your power lives in your decisions, your actions, your values, your responses. Not in the uncontrollable. Build this habit daily. One decision, one action, one conversation. Act where you have influence, and your influence will expand. Act where you have none, and your influence will shrink. This is how you reclaim control of your life, by choosing to live in the space where your choices matter most. Habit 4, the daily reflection of character. Transformation is not the result of dramatic breakthroughs or sudden bursts of motivation. It is the product of quiet, consistent reflection, the daily choice to examine who you were today, who you want to become, and how you can bridge that gap tomorrow. Most people never take even a few minutes to look inward at the end of the day. They rush from task to task, collapse into distraction, and fall asleep without ever asking themselves the questions that would allow them to grow. But without reflection, you repeat the same patterns. Without reflection, you lose the opportunity to refine your character. And without reflection, your life becomes a blur of days lived without intention. This is why I teach a simple but transformative habit, the daily reflection of character. It is not a long exercise, nor is it a rigid ritual. It is a few minutes of honest accountability, a moment when you step back from the noise of the day and reconnect with the person you are becoming. It is a practice rooted in humility and responsibility, not guilt or self-criticism. Its purpose is growth, not perfection. The reflection consists of 3 questions. They may appear simple, but they will reveal more about your life than most people ever understand. The first question is, did I live my values today? Not did you succeed at everything? Not did everything go your way? Did you honor the principles you claim to believe in? Did you act with integrity, patience, courage, service, compassion, or discipline? Values are not virtues you hold. They are virtues you practice. When you reflect on them daily, you strengthen the muscle of alignment. The second question is, what decision moved me closer to my mission? Every day contains at least one choice that either moves you forward or keeps you stuck. It might be a conversation you initiated, a task you completed, a promise you kept, a step you took towards something that matters deeply to you. Identifying that decision reinforces your sense of purpose and reminds you that progress is often small, but it is real. The third question is, what can I improve tomorrow? This is not a question of blame. It is a question of responsibility. It allows you to gently examine moments when you reacted instead of choosing, when you drifted instead of leading, when you acted from emotion instead of principle. Improvement begins with awareness, and awareness grows through reflection. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine someone who ends their day frustrated because they snapped at a family member. In the rush and pressure of the moment, they reacted without thinking. In the past, they might have justified it, ignored it, or blamed stress. But now, with this daily reflection, they pause. They acknowledge it. They ask themselves, did I live my values? Did that reaction align with the person I want to be? What could I do differently tomorrow? Perhaps they realize they need a brief pause before responding, or they need to communicate their stress earlier, or they simply need to choose patience as their morning value. That small reflection becomes the seed of tomorrow's improvement. This is how character grows, not through sudden leaps, but through steady refinement. When you commit to these 3 questions each evening, you begin to see your life with clarity. You begin to understand your patterns, your triggers, your strengths, your blind spots, and instead of repeating the same mistakes, you begin to adjust. You begin to improve. You begin to grow from the inside out. And I want you to hear this clearly. Reflection is not self-blame. It is self-leadership. It is the practice of taking responsibility for your life, your choices, and your growth. When you hold yourself accountable to your values, you build trust with yourself. You build integrity. You build a sense of internal alignment that no external circumstance can take away. Remember this phrase because it captures the heart of this habit. Accountability to your values builds the character that transforms your life. Not intensity, not perfection, accountability. That is the quiet, powerful habit that shapes who you become, one day at a time. Habit 5, renew yourself daily. You cannot transform your life from a place of chronic exhaustion. You cannot grow when you are depleted. You cannot become a better leader, parent, partner, creator, or human being if every day you are running on the last drops of your energy. Yet this is how most people live, constantly pushing, constantly stretching, constantly demanding more of themselves while giving almost nothing back to the self that must carry those demands. They try to upgrade their lives without upgrading their inner resources. But renewal is not optional. Renewal is the foundation of greatness. In my work, I have always emphasized the principle of sharpening the saw, the habit of regularly renewing yourself so that you can meet the challenges of life with strength rather than fatigue. Imagine a woodcutter who is so busy cutting trees that he never stops to sharpen his saw. He becomes slower, less effective, more frustrated. He pushes harder but accomplishes less. This is exactly what happens when you neglect your own renewal. You become efficient at exhaustion, but ineffective at life. Renewal happens in 4 essential dimensions, each one connected, each one necessary, each one strengthening the others. The first is physical renewal. Your body is not simply a vessel, it is the instrument through which you live your mission. When you neglect your sleep, your nutrition, your movement, or your basic health, everything else breaks down. You become reactive, irritable, and mentally foggy. But small habits, 5 minutes of stretching, a short walk, drinking more water, a moment of deep breathing can change the tone of your entire day. You don't need perfection, you need consistency. The second is mental renewal. Your mind needs nourishment just as your body does. Most people feed their minds with noise, distraction, and endless stimulation. But mental renewal comes from learning, reflecting, thinking deeply, creating space for new ideas. 5 minutes of meaningful reading, a page of journaling, reviewing your goals, or revisiting an idea that inspires you. These acts strengthen your clarity and expand your perspective. A renewed mind becomes a powerful guide. The third is emotional renewal. We often underestimate the weight we carry: emotionally stress, conflict, disappointment, pressure, unresolved tension. Emotional renewal comes from connection, kindness, gratitude, listening, and being listened to. It might be a meaningful conversation with someone you love, expressing appreciation, forgiving someone, or simply pausing to feel your emotions without judgment. When your emotional life is nourished, your resilience grows, your relationships deepen, you respond instead of react. The fourth is spiritual renewal. This is the deepest dimension, the one that anchors your identity and purpose. It doesn't require religion, but it does require connection to something greater than your immediate concerns, your values, your mission, your faith, your sense of meaning. 5 minutes of silence, prayer, meditation, reading something uplifting, or performing a small act of service can renew your spirit in profound ways. This kind of renewal brings you back to who you are and why your life matters. These practices are simple, almost deceptively simple. A short walk, 5 minutes of reading, calling someone important, doing something kind, breathing with intention, sitting quietly with your values. None of these actions are dramatic, but their impact is. Because the transformation you seek does not come from intensity, it comes from daily renewal. From choosing to recharge and realign yourself every single day, not occasionally or when life becomes unbearable. I want you to carry this message with you. You cannot become a better person with a depleted self. Improvement demands energy. Growth demands clarity. Character demands strength. Renewal is how you restore your power to meet life with purpose instead of fatigue. If you build this habit, renewing yourself in small ways across these 4 dimensions, you will not only transform your days, you will transform your direction, your resilience, your relationships, and ultimately your life. Renewal is not an escape from responsibility. It is what makes responsibility possible. It is not a luxury. It is the foundation of greatness. If you forget everything else from this message, remember this. Change your habits, change your character, change your life. That is not a motivational slogan, it is a principle. Every meaningful transformation in your life will begin with a single, small, consistent habit practiced over time. This is the quiet, unseen work that reshapes who you are long before the results become visible to anyone else. And when your character changes, your decisions change, your relationships change, your opportunities expand. Your life begins to bend toward purpose, not pressure. I want you to imagine the version of yourself who lives by these habits. Not someday, not in a distant future, but steadily, day after day, week after week. Imagine the clarity you would feel each morning because your day begins in alignment rather than chaos. Imagine the confidence of knowing your priorities because your big rocks are set before the world demands your attention. Imagine the strength of living inside your circle of influence, acting from your values instead of reacting to circumstances. Imagine ending each day with a sense of progress and integrity because you pause to reflect, correct, and grow. Imagine a life where your energy is renewed, not drained, where you show up as the best version of yourself because you are committed to nurturing that version every single day. This transformation is real. It is not theoretical. It is not reserved for the disciplined, the privileged, or the unusually gifted. It is available to anyone who is willing to practice small habits with sincerity and consistency. You do not need to revolutionize your life overnight. You simply need to begin today with one habit that aligns with the person you want to become. So choose one, just one. Perhaps it is the morning alignment ritual. Perhaps it is identifying your 3 big rocks. Perhaps it is taking one proactive action inside your circle of influence. Or maybe it is a quiet moment of renewal, a walk, a page of reading, a few breaths of stillness. Whatever it is, let it be small enough to practice daily, but meaningful enough to shape your character. Because the habit you choose today is a statement about the life you intend to build. Let me leave you with this truth. Small daily habits create the person you become and the life you build. Your habits are always forming something. They are either carving out the path towards your highest values or reinforcing the patterns that hold you back. The power is always in your hands. Your freedom is always in your choices. Your transformation is always one decision away. You are not meant to drift through your days. You are meant to live them deliberately. You are not meant to surrender to circumstance. You are meant to lead your life from the inside out. And you are not meant to remain who you are today. You are meant to grow steadily, gracefully, purposefully into the person your values know you can become. If today marks the beginning of that journey, then you have already taken the most important step. When you're ready, join me in the next chapter where we will go deeper into personal mission, leadership, and the principles that allow you to live a life of purpose rather than reaction. Your transformation continues there.